Welcome to the podcast, Creating Value in Travel and Transportation, hosted by Landry Holy, CEO and founder of Fairval. In this podcast channel, we will exchange with entrepreneurs, industry experts, financial institutions, and investors on how they contribute to creating value in various travel verticals, thanks new innovative tech solutions and financial services. So, if you have an interest in travel retailing, hospitality, urban mobility, maritime, aviation and space tech, then this podcast is for you.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Creating Value in Travel and Transportation. Have you ever considered the journey behind your journey when you're flying from one place to another, often hopping between various flights? Well, there's a hidden world of complex partnerships and operations amongst airlines, all striving to provide a seamless end-to-end travel experience. These partnerships are the very backbone of the airline industry, making it possible to connect skies from any point A to any point B across the globe. So today, we will be diving into the essentials that shaped and will shape the future of travel, air travel. We will be talking about the core elements of airline business models. Think interlining, code sharing, NDC. Are these terms familiar to you? Well, whether you're aiming to invest or planning to innovate in the airline industry, the insight from our upcoming discussion is key. In this episode, I am extremely excited to welcome Oana Savu, Chief Strategy Officer at Dohop, a travel tech innovator making airline collaboration, in particular interlining, easier, more scalable, and more effective through cutting-edge technology. Hello, Oana. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting to be here with you today, Landry.
Well, thank you. So maybe let's start, as we usually start this podcast, by maybe telling us a bit more about yourself and what led you to come to, end up in Dohop at the end of the day.
Of course. I have embarked in the airline industry over 17 years ago when I joined Amadeus. It was a great journey, and there I have the privilege to lead and manage the realization of a number of new IT solutions around the customer handling at the airport, for example, baggage, ticketing, and ancillaries. And I will always be grateful for these experiences as they really helped me to discover and to learn more about the airline end-to-end processes, from shopping to booking to delivery, and also deep dive more into these financial and back office areas. The last project that I've done at Amadeus was the deployment of Altea NDC for airlines. And actually during this time, I have also embarked into the One Order industry program, which has just started. And partnering with colleagues from British Airways, we were the first one to implement actually the first pilot in the industry around this new order concept. I can say that this experience was kind of the one that propelled me to my next venture, which was at IATA. And there I was focusing on driving the adoptions of these new industry standards like NDC and One Order, or call them differently, the standards with the new standards with offers and orders. And also to support all these different industry players in their digital and retailing transformation. In my last couple of years at IATA, I was responsible of leading this future interline program of work and to create new standards and new strategies for partnerships and enhanced connectivity. And part of this program, I was also engaging with a number of providers that were proposing and exploring new innovative solutions and ways around airline partnerships and connectivity. And Dohop was actually one of them. And I must confess, Landry, that I kind of was immediately drawn in, not only by the solution and its potential, but also by their company culture and their company value. So when I started to have more and more appetite to get closer to this innovative space, to get closer to these innovative solutions and bring these new partnerships to life, joining Dohop was kind of a natural next step in my career. So today, in my current role, what I do, well, I help shaping and implementing the company strategy to grow and to expand. But I'm also looking into all these new business opportunities to continue to innovate in this space.
Right, very interesting. So, as you started to talk about Dohop, can you tell me a bit more what Dohop does? What's their mission, the key drivers, and the key services it offers, basically?
Of course. So I would start by saying that Dohop is today a European market leader for alternative interline solutions. So the company is based in Reykjavik in Iceland. We also have an office in London, but on top of that, we have actually people uh, living in 10 countries across the globe. And what I always like to say is that what we all have in common in this company, apart the passion for the industry and the passion to innovate, it's also the driver to make the connected travel simpler, which is actually part of our main mission. The company was founded quite a while ago, actually in 2004. And how the story began was that the founder was looking for best connections options to Iceland. And as a result of that, he decided to develop a flight meta search engine. But we started to shift more and more into the B2B space, mainly around 2017. Focusing into this air-to-air type of partnerships and type of connectivity. And that was the year when we actually have launched Worldwide by EasyJet. We continued to grow since then, of course. And actually, since about 1.5 years ago, we have also started to step into the air-to-rail and air-to-intermodal space. So in short, our solution is helping airlines to connect with other carriers, these being other airlines or other rail or ground transport operators. Is really empowering them and giving them these simple tools to expand their networks, to increase their revenue, and also to maintain control of their distribution channels without the complexity and the constraints of the traditional interline or code share agreements.
Okay, so you're opening the big topic. So let's enter in the raw domain. So just for everyone to be on the same level, just explain in few words what is airline interlining exactly, and I'm talking about the traditional model of airline interlining, because you mentioned alternate airline interlining, which is what we'll discuss further on. So can you explain the main benefits, the challenges with the traditional approach, and what it is?
Of course. And I will start, as you were suggesting, with the definition. So let's understand what it is, why airlines are doing that today, how they do it, and then go into the benefits and the challenges as well. So in simple words, what interline is, from an airline perspective, is when it means any relationship where one airline sells a ticket for a travel itinerary that contains other airline or airlines that are operating any of the flights. See it differently from a traveler perspective. Interlining is when a travel itinerary that includes more than one airline has been purchased via a single transaction. It implies as well seamless transfer throughout the journey and also protection when things goes wrong, like disruption. Now, why airlines are doing interline today? And it's very simple. I would put it that way. They use interline to serve markets that they would otherwise not be able to serve alone. So interlining allows airlines to access all these new markets, but also new customers, and just building network reach. Now, how this is being done today, I would say mainly by the traditional carriers, being IATA member airlines, but not only. is relying on what is being called the IATA Interline Framework. And this framework actually combines a set of IATA standards, a multilateral agreement, and also settlement platforms. The aim of this framework is to facilitate a standard model and support a common set of processes around scheduling, reservation, ticketing, pricing, baggage, irregular operations, and interline billing and settlement. And it's kind of, if you want, this one recipe with all these steps that everyone agrees to follow. This interline framework has always provided three key value propositions for the passengers. Having a single contract with a single airline, so it's one ticket, one price, one currency, and one payment. The through check-in of the passenger and the baggage, meaning getting a boarding pass at the first point of the check-in for the entire journey, and having as well the baggage being tucked in for the entire journey, and then protection in case of disruption. Now, all that sounds great. So, where are the challenges? And it's important to note that this IATA interline framework, which is kind of one size fits for all model, has been developed decades ago, before the deregulations. So when we're looking more and more into what is happening today and what was happening in the last couple of years, we can very easily notice that airlines are now negotiating and managing many separate agreements, for example, that are just complementing or even replacing some of these traditional interline management. And this framework has started to create a number of challenges for the airlines. And I will go on through the main ones, like providing limitation, as for example, to what can be offered to customer. Think about cross-selling of ancillaries, which is still a pain point that we have in this industry. And as a result of that, well, I think we all agree, there is little transparency for the customer with limited support for ancillary services and really leaving them with limited choices and creating overall an inferior retailing experience. The other limitation is that this one-size-fits-for-all model agreement limits the involvement of many of the type of carriers, such as the low-cost carriers or transport operators. And the main reason being that for these carriers to be part of this multilateral agreement framework, well, they kind of need to use and to mimic all these full-service carriers' traditional legacy processes. Think of filing the fares, issuing and accepting electronic tickets and EMDs. So the result of all that is limited and complex interlining between ticketing and ticketless carriers, and also limited and complex connectivity with other transport operators, such as rail, buses, ferries, etc.
Right. I mean, it's very interesting because, as you know, I've also worked for GDS. It's all my memories coming back, and you realize how complex it is to operate flights at the end of the day. And we have the opportunity, the chance to have you, and you have worked for IATA. As a reminder, what IATA defined standards for the airline industry. It's founded by, I would say the members are airlines. And so you worked for IATA, and you actually worked for the new approach for interlining. So can you share a little bit more about it and how you address the issues you mentioned?
Of course. So, well, actually, I will just build on some of these challenges that I've mentioned before. And, looking at the current context and looking at all these different and existing challenges, there is a new retailer supplier framework that has started to be shaped and to be developed since a couple of years now. And what this framework aims is to support more generic retailer-supplier type of a relationship, aiming to provide much more flexibility beyond this one single multilateral agreement. So see it in that way. This new framework aims to introduce standards and processes that are removing the complexity of all these legacy processes like flight fares, availability, reservation, tickets. And it's introducing much more simpler and generic offer and order-based interactions between a retailer and the supplier. As an example, Landry. Well, imagine that you're a customer searching for travel options, let's say on your favorite retailer airline website. The objective is that with all this in place, you will be able to access much more options, much more destinations and services tailored to your needs. And this including not just air, but also imagine much more travel services, helping you, for example, to reach the airport from your home, or going farther to reach
Mhm.
from the airport the city center, so to go to your end destination. And all this being packaged in nice offers that the retailer carrier will be able to provide them in conjunction with all these different suppliers with whom they will have an agreement with. So really the aim of all these concepts is to be much more generic and broad, and to support an open, if you want, framework aiming for much more flexibility and easier integrations of all these new type of partnerships, enabling airlines to offer diverse and enriched content to their travelers.
Right, very, very interesting. So let's then move to Dohop. So how is Dohop approaching interlining, and how does Dohop leverages technology in this case?
Well, we do have actually these concepts of retailer, supplier, offer, and order, part of our solution, at the heart of our solution, I can say. Put it simply, we integrate various type of carriers today in our ecosystem, either as a retailer or a supplier. So what we do for retailer airlines, as an example, so we deploy a fully customized retailing platform through which the airlines, they can select the different supplier carriers that they want to partner with. And this solution is then seamlessly integrated into the airline direct channel, helping to expand not just the direct sales, but also allowing airlines to distribute all these new offers much more seamlessly under their own brand. And as a result, the airlines can see very quickly a significant boost in terms of revenue and also conversion rates. Furthermore, we also provide a protection service. So, meaning that in the event of delays or cancellation, which can affect the connectivity, we communicate with the customers and the airlines, offering alternative flights to ensure that the passengers are reaching their final destination as promptly as possible.
Right. So if to echo what you're saying is that you're using the technology to kind of reproduce what is heavy to implement today with a traditional approach, uh, and making it much more, I would say, flexible to implement.
Exactly.
Okay, right. So who are Dohop's main customers? And give us maybe a concrete example on a type of customer where Dohop has created, value so far.
So today we have close to 80 carriers, which are part of our ecosystem.
Oh, wow.
And these carriers include different type of airlines, such as LCC, think about EasyJet, Vueling, Transavia, but we also work with a number of full service carriers, such as Air France or Aegean. And as I've mentioned at the beginning, we now start to have as well a couple of rail operators, which are part of our ecosystem. And what I can tell you, what all these carriers, kind of to your previous reflection, they like about our solution is that this is very quick and easy to deploy and to integrate. It's also customizable and allows them to sell more ancillaries. It doesn't require traditional interline agreements. The airline retained the full control and full ownership of the customer. And passengers are being fully covered by Dohop in case of disruption between connections. So both these retailer and supplier carriers, they really appreciate the benefits of expanding their network and increasing their connectivity, tapping into new pools of demand via this new type of partnerships, while they remain in control of their offers.
Right. So just a more explicit question. So I suppose that you use a lot the data, for example, to identify opportunities, but risk as well. I used, in my previous life, we used to work on this type of domain. We used to call it virtual interlining, and data, AI was really a core element. And that's how actually I discovered Dohop, because you were the front runner in this domain. So is that a good summary to say it's really all about also the assessment of the data to be able to predict and to do the right recommendations?
Very, very much. So we use data to identify these new opportunities, to identify, well, first of all, to identify where demand is or when demand can be stimulated. Also to identify all these new type of partnerships. We share this data with the airlines, and then we decide together with them, of course, which of these proposed suppliers makes sense, for their business. But very importantly, we also use the data to monitor how these different partnerships are actually progressing and how efficient they are. So the airlines, they really have the flexibility to set up or to even to change sometimes these partnerships depending on the demand and depending on their business needs.
Right. Just a quick parenthesis. You quickly highlighted the notion of intermodal travel. And I think this is something which is becoming bigger and bigger as, with sustainability objectives and so on. So airlines have to rethink how they operate. They bring a traveler from point A to point B. And so using rail, for example, it becomes quite important. Again, I remember that when we were trying to do intermodal between rail and airlines, unless the rail company was acting like an airline, it was a real nightmare. So,
Indeed.
can you maybe share a bit more how easy or how Dohop approaches this intermodal aspect?
Of course. So when it comes to intermodal, we work with carriers already, which are part of our ecosystem, but we also engage more and more with many airlines that are looking to join our ecosystem, mainly because they have a strong need and they want to expand their partnerships with more railways and intermodal transport operators. And our approach is based on a flexible integration with this intermodal content and making this available in the airline direct channel. So see it like that. It really supports all the search, shop, book for these journeys that includes flight and other transport means. And it's not just that, but also enabling this in the airline direct channel and also distributing these new offers to different meta searches as an example. So we can connect both rail to full service carriers and low cost airlines. We also support different types of rail, such as intercity or regional, and different type of rail stations. And in short, I would say we provide an intermodal solutions to airlines, which, going back to your point, aims to reduce heavily the maintenance that they would need to have it on their side if it would be to do it via a code share type of an agreement. So it's much more simpler in terms of an approach than these traditional ways of doing it. And it also includes this protected intermodal connectivity to the travelers. So that way, the airlines, they can continue to expand and to optimize their networks in a much more sustainable manner.
Right. Um, what I went on the Dohop site and I was, playing around and so on. And what struck me is, first thing I saw, there was a lot of full service carriers, because when you think about this new approach of interlining, the first use case I was thinking of was more, low cost flying from low cost from Nice to Paris, and then from Paris to New York, for example, with a full service carrier. But I was really surprised that there was actually a lot of full service carriers, so standard airlines, if you call them this way, using Dohop. So, would you say that basically the main strong value proposition here is really about the fact that you're really enabling this retailing model actually to be implemented? And would you say that at the end of the day, your value proposition is addressing all types of airline, and it's not just about the use case low cost to full service carrier, but it's really about that retailing enabler?
Exactly. It's really providing to the airlines these tools and this ability to set up in place partnerships with any type of carriers that they want and that suits their business need. And actually, if I would like to comment a little bit to your
Mm.
reflection, right? Because indeed, in the recent times, we have seen the market share of the low cost carriers increasing, and as well, we have also seen, especially with the pandemic, it was before the pandemic as well, but I think the pandemic really increased that need as well for the legacy carriers to be able to connect more and more with low cost carriers. And we've been mentioning already a number of times, these type of partnerships are really difficult to be enabled in a world of interline and code share. And you can question, why should LCCs change their business models, right, to adapt to the legacy carriers requirement? So there's definitely still quite a big appetite and requirement for new ways, new solutions, and even new standards to support and addressing this need. And I would say behind this, this need is one of the requirements we actually hear more and more, and or we hear it the most often times, is expanding network and increasing connectivity. And I think it's important to understand why airlines are looking, why airlines they need to do so, because at the end and at the core of that, it is the customer. So it's first of all meeting customer demands. Travelers are looking for more choices, services, seamless connectivity when planning their trips. I think both of you and we kind of concur to this type of basic need, but also offering a broader network and a better connectivity, independent of the type of carriers, can give airlines a better competitive advantage. It allows them to differentiate their services from their competitors, attract more passengers, more routes, more destinations means also more opportunities, right, to sell more tickets, but also to sell more ancillaries, which ultimately results in increasing revenue streams. So expanding into all these new markets, establishing new routes, it also helps airlines and carriers in general to reach new customer segments and ultimately to grow their customer base. So going back to your point, yes, the value proposition is to support easy solutions and easy tools to allow the airlines to establish these new partnerships, to increase their network, to expand connectivity, in order to just provide more relevant choices to their travelers.
Yeah, but I think that I'm sure that part of the audience who are not coming from the airline industry, they don't realize that the airline industry is kind of not very flexible, and the notion of true retailer, is something which is rather new. And if you travel, you have your booking file call it a PNR. It's, it's very strict, and people don't realize sometimes that what is happening is under this shift of business model is really a shift of the airline industry, because as you say, we're opening more routes. The airlines are going to partner differently. People know the alliances as a basis, but what does an alliance means at the end of the day? The alliance will be more and more driven by these retailing opportunities that pop up, and that can also enable the airline to have a more custom specific strategy, growth strategy. So coming back to this, if I think about Dohop value proposition, do you think that the way the airlines are defining or designing their offer needs to be enhanced or thought differently in order to maximize the value proposition that Dohop is putting on the table?
Well, the way I see our solution with regards to an airline offer management, I would say that what we propose as a solution to the airlines, it really complements this offer management. And why I'm saying that? So first of all, the airlines, they keep remaining in control of their offers and ultimately their orders. And using, if you want, our retailing platforms, what they will benefit from is really to enhance this with more services and also more itineraries from different supplier carriers that they would choose to partner with. That's more or less to put, if you want, the offer in place and to have it there. But also, as I've been mentioning, I think it's also very important to think about the data analytics, as we've been touching on this one. It's all to also keep an eye on what are the opportunities where these offers can continue to be improved. Also, just to track and to monitor the performance of the different, let's say, sales or existing partners, or just the connectivity in different O&Ds or in different markets. So all this is kind of important to be put together.
Okay. So when we started, we talked about the traditional model, and one of the value proposition in the traditional model of interlining was also the protection of the traveler. How does Dohop addresses the customer service, and how is it then perceived within the ecosystem and the traveler in particular?
I would say that one of our main objectives is to ensure a seamless connectivity. I told you at the very beginning, we have it at the core of our business to make connected travel simple. So therefore, all the connections that are being established today within our ecosystem and via our platforms, we help to protect the customers that are actually flying through these connections in case of irregular operations. How we do it, what do I mean by that? It means that we monitor these connections in real time, and in the event when there is a delay or a cancellation, we will proactively reach out to the customers, and the customers will be either rebooked on the next available flight to their final destination, or we just provide them with a number of options for the rebooking. And to do so, we actually have multilingual call centers being situated in different locations and operating 24/7. And in general, what I can share with you, Landry, is that 90% of the short-haul connections are being reaccommodated on the same day, and roughly 70% of the long-haul connections are being reaccommodated within 24 hours. So all that to say that customer satisfaction is very, very important for us, and we are doing our best to maintain a high trust pilot score. I think today this is roughly around 4.7. So
Okay, yeah, and it's good to remind the aspect of post booking, because we see a lot of people wanted to go into the travel industry and they think about the booking system. But actually the challenge is not just the booking, is when you are able to really monitor, manage the whole end-to-end trip. And I think that's a core element of the value proposition that an intermediary can offer to an airline. So yeah, thank you for clarifying those points. As you're again bouncing back on your experience in IATA, I like to talk about NDC and one order. So just for everyone again to be on the same page, NDC one order are kind of the foundation, which is shifting the airline to become true retailers. So NDC stands for new distribution capabilities, and one order basically, just to simplify, is like, how can I have like a shopping basket? I can and basically order, sell my air travel services to any consumer as I would do for any types of service. So this, stated in a very simple words, is not simple to implement. And especially when you add the interlining, complexity. So could you maybe just explain, first of all, a bit more in details of what is NDC, going a bit further from what I explained, and then explain how Dohop could contribute in making the deployment of NDC/one order more scalable, more easy.
Of course. I think you provided already a very good explanation.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. NDC, which, well, you were saying it stands for the new distribution capabilities, is actually a data exchange format, if you want, or standard based on offer and order management processes for airlines to create and to distribute offers regardless of the distribution channel. Now, you mentioned it, and I think it's important to highlight the fact that in the last couple of years, IATA has pivoted, if you want, its strategy and its overall engagement strategy from a focus on NDC or one order more to a focus on enhancing retailing. Now, what does it mean? I would put it that way. In embarking on a retailing journey requires airlines to think across their entire ecosystem and their entire customer journey, right? From shopping to booking to payment, delivery, financial, back office processes. Of course, aiming to provide at the end a much better customer experience. So to kind of support this retailing storyline, there are all these new programs that IATA has put in place in the last couple of years. One order is one, but there is as well the dynamic offer creation, the settlement with orders, and the future of Interline. So you were kind of saying it, but at the core of this airline retailing, there is a world of offer and orders. In other words, sunsetting the need to use the legacy standards that are being kind of used and followed today by many airlines in the industry. Now, I believe you would agree with me that this retailing transformation is a very complex process, and it cannot be driven by a carrier in isolation. Ultimately, it affects the entire airline ecosystem. Why I'm saying that is because partnerships are really essential to help airlines achieving this transformation. That including teaming up with airlines, transport operators, airports, or even technology providers. And this is where we come into the picture, because partnerships is really at the core of what we know and what we do at the best. I would also say that somehow, with our solution, we're doing it already. We are helping airlines in this direction today. Let me give you an example, and I will pick the most obvious one, which is EasyJet and their Worldwide by EasyJet platform, where they sell today new connections directly to their customers under the EasyJet brand. And they don't do that alone, right? They do it by partnership and partnering with more than 20 airlines, offering thanks to these new partnerships, a great variety of new destinations to the travelers. Also, by not being constrained by all these legacy processes and the technology, they also managed to enrich their offers with many ancillaries, provide more choices ultimately to their travelers. They're not the only one. I can argue that all the airlines part of our ecosystem, they want to make better offers to the customers, keep customer ownership, build on loyalty, but also gain new customers. And as another need, we've touched already a couple of times on this environmental agenda and the need to look in more sustainable type of partnerships. So this need to look into different solutions to integrate air and rail much more seamlessly, intermodal, and this door-to-door travel gained a lot of momentum, right, in the last couple of years. So if we come back to this transition, I would say it's very important to look at all these needs, challenges, pain points that airlines have today, and also where they can use technology to address them. There is the technology, and then I come back to the partnerships, addressing as well the partnerships with different type of suppliers, also different type of content suppliers is definitely one of the key ingredients that will help them both in the IT landscape transformation, right? But also to ultimately expand their offers, provide more services, provide more choices, and last but not least, expand the network. So yes, this is where we can definitely see us as a company playing an important role to help airlines to achieve that.
Yeah, and when you think about the standard retail industry, I can picture what you're saying applying to the airline industry, which again, people think it's already there, but no, it's completely, we're still relying on very legacy processes. So we talked about Dohop with, serving the airlines. But how does it work on the other side with the retailers, like the OTAs, other OTAs, the meta search? How does Dohop positions and how with those guys, and what's the value proposition you enable also on this other part of the value chain?
Well, I would say, and I think I've mentioned that already a couple of times, our approach is really to, especially when it comes to distribution, to follow the airlines in their distribution strategy and all these new offers, if you want, all these new connectivities and all these new services that they would like to enable for their travelers, helping them to distribute in their distribution channel of choice. What it means for all these, if you want, different channels and all these distribution players is as well benefit from and be able to provide more offers, more products ultimately to the customers, right? Because I think we all share a similar objective in the industry, whatever we are sitting, provider or airline or different transport operators. Focusing on the customer journey continues to be a priority and will continue to be a priority. And expanding these offers and making it much more relevant to the traveler in order to provide a better traveler experience remains a critical objective for everyone. So yeah.
Okay, so I like to talk about a difficult question I have, and being for years in this industry, I remember that because I've worked on the traditional model called the global distribution model, which enables basically global distribution system, enabling basically to airlines to distribute their flights, their seats through indirect distributions, such as the travel agencies. And this is, orchestrated by companies called the GDSs. And I remember working in some of those companies. People were asking me, the GDS have the monopoly there, in the middle, they have the main market, the monopoly of the market. And some people many companies attempted to kill the GDSs. And I was always, very, very sure of myself, saying, as long as you have interlining, which is, a core need for travelers, you always have GDS, because it's so complex to implement. It's years and years of code, having myself developed some of that code. And, it's, you can do 80% of what a GDS does today quite quickly, but the 20 remaining, features, they are, lines of code, a lot of investment. and and I would say that has been kind of the reason why GDSs have been able to remain. Now, when I listen to you with what you're offering with Dohop, which is a kind of a new layer which kinds of bypass this traditional interlining model, with new technology, I'm starting to think, wow, are the GDSs under threat? And again, I'm not talking about a specific company, because companies doing GDSs are doing many other things than just the GDS feature, of course. But the business model within the value chain, is the GDS traditional, approach. Is it time that they kind of start to get really get into trouble, basically?
First of all, I think a lot of the GDSs done a huge amount of work in the last couple of years, especially when it comes to the new standards and the new concepts. I don't see a direct competition or a threat. I really see Dohop as kind of a partner of the airlines, as I've mentioning, helping them to expand these partnerships, in reaching their offers. And then when it comes to distribution, it's really following the airline kind of distribution strategy, and just distributing these new offers to the airline distribution channels of choice. Another maybe aspect to highlight is, today when we integrate, for example, airlines part of our ecosystem, of course we very much encourage to have direct integrations, but we have carriers who are more pushing to have content integration via different aggregators. Can we see GDSs as an aggregator? I don't know. You can, I leave this one as an open reflection. My point being, we really have a flexible approach. I think that is the most important to highlight. And we have a flexible approach, very, very much following kind of what airlines they want to do. In terms of partnerships, in terms of distribution, name them all. So yes, I don't see it as a direct type of competition. It's more of an airline partner type of a provider.
No, I think it's a good approach personally, because it's true that in that industry, I've seen a lot of people who wanted to kill the GDS and still want to kill the GDS, but which is not. I would say it's not the question. I think you kind of say it indirectly. It's about how can we create more value in the value chain, and there's been a way of doing things at some stage, and I think all the actors are transforming themselves to actually bring more value to the traveler at the end of the day, with richer retailing services. So yeah, I think that is really more the challenge we should more focus on, rather than pinpointing on one player within the value chain. Which brings me, when we're talking about value, let's talk a bit more about technology, and how do you see emerging technologies, enhance overall the value creation in the industry? I'm thinking about things like biometrics. We've been talking for some time about IoT, blockchain. Anything that you foresee as, really relevant to, enable that transition towards a retailing model?
There are indeed a number of emerging technologies, right, that we have started to see more and more in the last couple of years, which is just wonderful. And I do agree with you when you've mentioned that all these have potential to create value. There are different ways. Just some of them that kind of comes into my mind quickly. Well, improving passenger experience. I think we've been mentioning already a number of times in this podcast how important the traveler experience is. Also, you've mentioned a couple of them at the airport. So this can definitely provide more efficient airport operations, enhanced baggage tracking, for example, and baggage management. I think we've also touched on how difficult, right, is to establish these interline partnerships today. So think about the contractual part. Looking at that, the smart digital contracts, they definitely have a lot of opportunities, I would say, and can automate and simplify the way all these commercial relationships are being established today. Reducing, all these different administrative overheads, minimizing disputes. And another one I can think about is, for example, data security, fraud prevention. But overall, I strongly believe that the adoption of all these different emerging technologies in the airline industry has the potential to drive innovation, efficiency, which is very important, and value creation around all these different aspects of operations, passenger experience, and just business, management in general. However, to successfully implement this, there is investment that is being required. And I very often highlight there is also collaboration that is required among the different industry stakeholders. And I very, very often say this is more than just an IT transformation overall. It's also very, very much a business transformation, not just for the airlines, but for the entire airline ecosystem ultimately.
Yeah. And when you mentioned about the smart contract, it's a digital enabler for collaboration, indeed. So we're reaching the end of the podcast. So I have one last question, which links to this previous question, which is, could you share? And again, I know that Dohop is doing a lot of innovation. It's in the DNA, but anything you could share on what's coming up from the Dohop lab, if I could speak in those terms, or exciting development that are on the roadmap that you can share, of course, today?
Well, we do have indeed, Landry, a lot of new exciting projects that we're working on. Many of them being focused on, for example, the transfer experience of the travelers at the airport. Also, we work on new tools to improve even more the customer service. And one very exciting project that is close to my heart is actually expanding into this air intermodal space, as we see plenty of opportunities there. So when I look ahead, I expect, of course, not just this airline industry landscape to continue to evolve, but I definitely see our business evolving as well. And I will leave you with this one. I really dream of a world where seamless partnerships, even seamless connectivity, will be the new norm and will support a very smooth end-to-end travel journey.
Well, that seems to be a very good conclusion. I would like to thank you for your time, Oana, and sharing this wealth of experience, expertise with us. And I thank you also the audience for attending to this podcast. Thank you all. Thank you, Oana.
Thank you very much for having me today.
A pleasure. And I'll see you at the next podcast. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to the podcast. Creating Value in Travel and Transportation, from Fairval. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to it. We welcome your support, feedback, and suggestions, and we hope to see you at the next podcast. Fairval, creating value in travel and transportation.